In today's fight news, we start off with the notorious Conor McGregor, as the champ posted a picture on his social media account of himself laid up in a doctor's bed with a devilish grin on his face. The picture has generated a lot of speculation on whether or not the former champion will or will not be moving forward with the main event for UFC 303. There is hope that the UFC 303 main event will move forward as the T-Mobile Arena continues to post advertisements for the event on their X account. After his recent war with lightweight champion Islam Makhachev at UFC 302, Dustin the Diamond Poirier posted on his social media account that his nose is in fact broken. He also said that he broke a rib and his ACL is partially torn. While on the MMA Hour, welterweight Michael Chiesa says that he was offered the Tony Ferguson fight because the UFC did not offer him any other options. Chiesa told Ariel Helwani that after his loss to Kevin Holland, he was in a low point in his life. He said now he's fighting not to chase a win or a title, but just to get that feeling back of being the best that he can be. Chiesa said that it doesn't matter what happens from here on out because he feels that he has already won at life. Also on the MMA Hour, lightweight contender Arman Tsarukyan says that he hopes his next fight is at the famed Madison Square Garden. Tsarukyan expects his next fight to be against the lightweight champion Islam Makhachev in either October or November, stating that the matchup would either be in October in Abu Dhabi or November in Madison Square Garden. Tsarukyan says that he'll easily out-wrestle Makhachev if the same version that showed up at UFC 302 shows up against him in their title fight, pointing out that the champion got tired during that matchup against Dustin Poirier. Ahead of his upcoming UFC 304 interim heavyweight title shot, Curtis Razor Blades tells Ariel Helwani that he doesn't view the heavyweight champion Jon Jones as the true champion and considers his matchup with Tom Aspinall for the interim title the real heavyweight title fight. Also saying that Jones isn't a true heavyweight because he doesn't have the legs of a heavyweight, saying that Jones looked a little top heavy in his title winning effort against Cyril Gane. Blade says that he doesn't feel respected by the UFC and points out that he wasn't even the first option for the interim title fight against Aspinall, pointing out that the UFC offered the fight to Cyril Gane before him, saying that he was just the consolation because Gane turned down the fight. Undisputed women's super middleweight champion Savannah Marshall reflects on her transition from boxing to MMA, saying that you cannot have ego in MMA, and that's what she's learned coming from boxing. Marshall was asked if she's making more money now fighting in the PFL than she did in boxing. She says that she's made good money as a champion, but she says in her weight division and higher, there aren't enough big names to generate the revenue she can make in MMA. Ahead of his main event at this weekend's UFC Fight Night, Jared Cannonier reflects on his win over former middleweight champion Sean Strickland. Cannonier pointed out how Strickland always moves forward against opponents but did not do so in their matchup, saying he shut down his game plan. He said he's sick and tired of people saying he barely won that fight. While on a recent episode of the Jackson podcast, former middleweight champion Luke Rockhold said he's sick and tired of seeing Sean Strickland's face, calling the former champion fake and saying he doesn't believe most of the things that he's spouting off. Rockhold was quoted as saying, "Effing book me, sign me up Dana, I will effing end this kid's life, I guarantee." In typical Sean Strickland fashion, the former champion was quick to respond, stating, "Couple things. I sparred you one round, effed you up, and you snuck away like a bee. This was witnessed. Also, we were scheduled to fight. I said, hell yeah, that's an easy paycheck, and you pulled out a few weeks out." While speaking to Submission Radio, former featherweight kingpin Alexander Volkanovski says that he thinks Islam Makhachev should be the #1 ranked pound-for-pound fighter over Jon Jones, pointing out the recent resume of Makhachev versus Jones, who has barely fought in the past few years. Volkanovski also picks Max Holloway to defeat Ilia Topuria if the two face off, stating that Max's chin has always held up and his boxing is great. Former light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill posted on his Instagram the following: "Now I haven't really spoke on this, but I went to Brazil and dog walked your guy in one of the most one-sided ass whippings in championship history, and after showed nothing but respect and paid homage. I've never celebrated over an opponent I beat, and I even called out my fans for disrespecting Johnny Walker after I slept him. But because I showed competitive fire and was excited to be back after an injury that could have ended my career, y'all think this is funny or cool? At Poeton, you really set up a punch you couldn't get to without a weird, confusing moment. And you did some weak but it's okay, because you will fight me again, and my eyes won't leave you until you're stiff as Izzy left you in Miami." Welterweight contender Vicente Luque says that when he got the call from his manager that he was going to be fighting Nick Diaz, he had to make sure it was actually Nick and not Nate Diaz. It looks like Darren Till is looking to fight Jake Paul now that the Mike Tyson fight has been postponed. On to some boxing news, as undisputed heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk says that after his rematch with Tyson Fury, that he's considering moving back down to the cruiserweight limit to become the undisputed cruiserweight champion again for the second time. While on the 3KR podcast, Usyk says that Tyson Fury was his toughest fight ever, but he says Fury wasn't the hardest puncher. He gives that credit to Derek Chisora, saying that when Chisora hit him, it felt like a baseball bat. Promoter Eddie Hearn says Jack Catterall's next fight will be targeted for late August in Manchester, England. He said the likely opponent will be Regis Prograis or Arnold Barboza. The purse bid for Canelo Alvarez versus William Skull will now be postponed 1 week, giving Canelo an additional week to decide if he's going to fight Skull or vacate his IBF super middleweight world title. Promoters Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren have said that they're looking to do another 5 vs 5 event after this weekend's Queensberry vs Matchroom event was a success, saying, "The concept worked so well and number 2 will be even bigger. We shall be back to settle the score." The updated Riyadh season boxing card for August 3rd in LA goes as follows: Terrence Crawford versus Israel Madrimov, Isaac Cruz versus Jose Valenzuela, Andy Ruiz taking on Jarrell Miller, Jared Anderson taking on Martin Bacoli, David Morrell versus Hot Rod Kalajic, and Andy Cruz taking on Antonio Moran.